What are the different types of tools professional developers use? Professional developers rely on a variety of tools to increase productivity and code quality. Let's learn about these tools, including the ones that seem very obvious. The first among the tools is computers. A computer is a primary development environment. It could be a heavy desktop or a portable laptop with either Windows, macOS, or Linux as the operating system. Professional developers often go for computers with fast processing power and plenty of RAM to handle resource-intensive tasks. After the computer is a program for writing and editing code right on the computer. That's a code editor or integrated development environment, also known as an IDE. IDEs like Visual Studio Code, IntelliJ IDEA, JetBrains, and PyCharm provide powerful features like code completion, debugging, and integrated terminal support. Visual Studio Code is essentially a code editor, but it also provides these functionalities with its rich extension library. Other code editors are Sublime Text, Atom, Notepad++, and Brackets. When you write code with code editors and IDEs, you need to track the changes you make to them. The tool that lets you track those changes is a version control system. Git is the most widely used version control system in the development community. Platforms like GitHub, GitLab, and Bitbucket provide cloud-based hosting services for your Git repositories. These platforms enable collaboration with other developers, allowing you to work on multiple branches and facilitate the merging of code changes. Package managers are another critical tool. They help developers simplify the process of adding, updating, and removing libraries and project dependencies. Examples of popular package managers are npm, yarn, and pnpm for Python, Composer for PHP, Maven for Java. After writing code with different tools, developers test that code to make sure it's working as expected. For this, developers use testing frameworks like Cypress, Playwright, Selenium, and others. There are also language-specific testing frameworks. Examples are Jest for JavaScript, PyTest for Python, JUnit for Java, and PHPUnit for PHP. You don't only need to test the code to make sure it's working as expected. You also need to test what the code looks like visually to the end users. Developers use code. There are also tools for debugging and performance profiling. These tools help developers test and optimize their web applications across different browsers for the end users. Computer. Whether you use a Mac or Windows computer, there are built-in applications that you can use to organize your files. If you have a Windows computer, the default file manager is the File Explorer. This is used to browse, search, and manage files and folders, as well as perform file operations like copying, moving, and deleting. To find the File Explorer, you can go to the Start menu or press the Windows logo key on your keyboard. To pin a folder, you can right-click with your mouse and select Pin. To move a file or folder, you first need to select it, then select Cut, and then navigate to the new location to paste it. If you have a Mac computer, the default is Finder. This provides access to local and remote files, supports file previews, and offers a variety of organizational features like tags and smart folders. To access a Finder on your Mac, Go to the dock at the bottom and click on the Finder icon. You will notice a sidebar on the left-hand side where your favorite folders are located. One way to organize your files is to use what are called tags. To tag a file or folder, you can select the item in the Finder and then right-click with your mouse. You will see the Tags option in the drop-down, and you can apply a custom colored tag. To search for tagged items, you can scroll to the bottom of the sidebar and click on the corresponding colored tag, or you can search for the tag by color name in the search field. Another way to organize your files is to use smart folders. Smart folders are collections of files that are automatically organized based on criteria you set, such as file type, date, or keywords. Whether you're using File Explorer on Windows or Finder on Mac, these applications give you the flexibility to manage your files with features like tags, search, and smart folders. What are best practices for naming files for web applications? As you start to build your own web applications, you will need to be mindful of what you name your files. You will want to name your files in a way that is easy to understand and maintain. Let's take a look at some examples of good and bad file names for HTML files. Note that the HTML extension in these examples tells us that this is an HTML file. Here is an example of a bad file name, index1234.html. By the name alone, it is not clear what the file is about. This file could be for a products page, blog page, or any other type of page, but we don't know that from the file name. Here is an example of a better file name for an HTML file, aboutus.html. By using a more descriptive name like aboutus.html, it is clear what the file is about. You'll also notice in this file name that there are no spaces. Instead, you use a hyphen to separate the words. Sometimes you might see a file name called index.html. This is a special file name that is used to represent the main page of a website. When you visit a website, the index.html file is the first file that is loaded. Some other things to consider when naming files are the use of special characters. Using a mixture of special characters, numbers, and letters can make it difficult to understand what the file is about. Here is an example of a bad file name. This name looks unnecessarily complicated and does not give us any information about what the file is about. So it is best to stick to learn more languages. You will see that there are common conventions for naming files in those languages as well. In these situations, it is always best to consult with official documentation or other resources to understand the best practices for naming files in that language. Also, you'll be in situations where you are working on a team and you will need to follow what the team has established for naming files. Always consult with the team's style guide to make sure your file names are consistent with the rest of the team. What are best practices for file and folder organization in web applications? When building out web applications, it is important to think about the organization of your files and folders. This will help keep your code organized and make it easier to maintain. Let's take a look at an example folder structure for an HTML and CSS project. At the top of the example, we have a single dot. That dot represents what is known as the root directory. The root directory is the top-level directory in a file system. It is the starting point for all file paths and contains all other directories and files within it. Directory is another name for a folder. Inside the root directory, the first directory shown is the assets directory. The term assets refers to any files that are used in the project, such as images, fonts, and other resources. In this example, there are two directories inside the assets directory, called images and fonts. The next directory would be the CSS directory. Sometimes this is also referred to as a style sheets directory. This is where you would store all of your CSS files. Below the CSS directory, you have your HTML files. Index.html represents the home page, while the about.html and contact.html represent the about and contact pages respectively. Lastly, there is a README file. README files are commonly used to provide useful information about the project, such as what it does, how to use it, and any other relevant details. The MD extension stands for Markdown, which is a lightweight markup language that is often used to write documentation. Organizing your project into assets, CSS, and HTML files makes it easier to find what you're looking for. This also makes it easier for other developers to contribute to your project. It is important to note that this is just one example of how you can organize your files and folders. There are many different ways to structure a project. How to create, move, and delete files and folders using the Explorer or Finder. To create a file on Windows using the Explorer, you can click on the New option at the top right. This will show you a list of different types of files that you can create. You can also create files in their corresponding applications. Let's create a text file to show you the process. When you click on New and select the file type, you will see a new text file in your current folder with a default name. You can rename it if you'd like. The process of creating folders is exactly the same. Click the New button at the top right and then select the Folder option, or right-click on an empty spot and go to New, then select the Folder option. You'll see a new empty folder in your current location. You can rename files and folders by selecting them and clicking on the Rename option at the top. When the current name of the file is highlighted, you can start writing the new name of the file. Press Enter to confirm the changes. Alternatively, you can right-click on the file or folder and select the Rename option, or use the F2 keyboard shortcut. Write the new name and press Enter to confirm the changes. You can move a file or folder to another folder by dragging and dropping it into the destination folder, if you have it opened as a tab. You can also select the file or folder and select the Cut option at the top. Then go to the destination folder and paste it by clicking on the Paste button at the top. If you copied or cut the file previously, this button will be enabled. You can also do this by right-clicking on an empty spot and then clicking on the Paste icon. This will remove the file or folder from its original location. To delete a file or folder, click on it and then click on the trash icon at the top. You'll also find a Delete option if you right-click on it. Great, now let's see how you can do this on macOS using Finder. Finder is the default file manager on macOS. To create a file on macOS, you need to open an application that lets you create the type of document that you need to create. Currently, there isn't a built-in way to create a file directly on Finder. For example, to create a simple plain text file, you can open TextEdit and save your file. I will use text files to show you the process, but this works exactly the same for any type of file. There are many ways to open TextEdit. One of them is to go to Launchpad by clicking on this icon. Then search for an app where you can create the type of file that you're interested in. In this case, that would be TextEdit. Click on the icon to open the app. Once you're inside the app, you should see an option to save your file in the app menu. This menu is located at the top right, next to the Apple menu icon. This is a zoomed-in view of the app menu. The options in this menu depend on the app that you're currently using. In one of these options, you should see a command to save the file. This is usually under the File menu. Next to it, you will see the keyboard shortcut for saving your file. This is usually Command S on macOS. When you're saving the file for the first time, you should see a dialog window where you can write the name of the file and choose a location. Usually the file extension is added by the application automatically, but you can change it before saving the file. After saving the file, you can open Finder by clicking on the Finder icon in the dock. You should see your new file in the folder where you saved it. To create a new folder, you should go to the location where you want to create that new folder and right-click on an empty spot. You will see a list of options. The first option is New Folder. If you click on it, you can assign a name to your new folder. Write the name and press Enter to confirm. This is an example where I assigned the name FreeCodeCamp to my new folder. There are multiple ways to move files and folders in Finder. If you need to move them to a folder listed in your Finder Favorites section, you can just drag and drop it. If you need to move it to a different folder, you have two options. You can either open the destination folder as a tab and drag and drop the file or folder into the tab, or you can use keyboard shortcuts. First, copy the file with Command-C, go to the new folder, and then use Command-Option-B to paste the file or folder in that location. This will also remove it from the original folder. To delete a file or folder, you can right-click on it and select Move to Trash. You can also drag and drop them into the trash icon on the dock, which is equivalent. When the file or folder is in the trash can, you can right-click on it to delete it immediately, or you can empty the trash to remove all the deleted files and folders permanently. Knowing how to create, move, and delete files and folders on Windows and macOS is very important. By mastering these skills, you can organize your files, locate them quickly, and free up storage on your computer by deleting unnecessary files. How to search for files and folders on your computer. Let's learn how to search for files and folders on Windows and macOS. We'll start with Windows. You can search from the taskbar or from the File Explorer. To search from the taskbar, write the name of the file or folder that you're looking for. You can also search for keywords. You'll see results from across your PC and OneDrive. If you only want to see documents, you can click on the Documents tab. You also have tabs for apps and web results. Another alternative is to use the Search File Explorer. You will find it at the top right of the Explorer window, where you can see Search Documents. You have three options to define the scope of the search. You can search from home to find files from your PC and from the cloud quickly. You can search from a folder to find files stored inside it. You can search from this PC for a slow but in-depth search. And this is how you can search for files and folders on Windows. Now let's see how you can do this on macOS. First, you can use Spotlight, a tool that helps you find files on your Mac. To open Spotlight, go to your menu bar at the top right and find the magnifying glass. It's the second icon from right to left on the screenshot. If you don't see this icon on the menu bar, you can add it in the Control Center settings. Go to your settings, filter by Control Center, click on this option, and then scroll down until you find the Spotlight option. You can also use a keyboard shortcut to open Spotlight, Command Spacebar. When you open Spotlight, you'll see the Spotlight Search, where you can search for any file or folder by typing its name. When you start typing, you'll see the results grouped by category, including suggestions, folders, presentations, photos, documents, and related searches. You can also expand a specific category by clicking on Show More. Another way to search for files that you have recently opened is to open Finder by clicking on the Finder icon in the dock. Then go to Recents in the Finder sidebar. And there, you'll find all the files that you've recently viewed. This is how you can search for files and folders on macOS. With these search tools, you can optimize your workflow and find the files and folders that you need very quickly. Search File Explorer. You will find it at the top right of the Explorer window, where you can see Search Documents. You have three options to define the scope of the search. You can search from home to find files from your PC and from the cloud quickly. You can search from a folder to find files stored inside it. You can search from this PC for a slow but in-depth search. And this is how you can search for files and folders on Windows. Now let's see how you can do this on macOS. First, you can use Spotlight, a tool that helps you find files on your Mac. What are some common file types you will work with in web applications? Files are classified based on their content and structure. The file type determines how a file is opened and processed by computer programs. We identify file types based on their extensions. A file extension is usually a 3 or 4-letter suffix at the end of the file name. The three main file types that you will work with in web applications are HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. HTML files contain the structure and content of the web application. They have an HTML file extension. CSS files define the styles. They have a .css file extension. And JavaScript files add more advanced functionality and interactivity. They have a .js file extension. As you develop web applications, you will also need to include images. These are some of the most widely used image file types. JPEG, which stands for Joint Photographic Experts Group, is known for its efficient compression. It's great for photographs and images. However, the compression is lossy, which means that some image quality is lost to reduce the file size. PNG, which stands for Portable Network Graphics, preserves image quality even after compression. This results in larger files. PNG supports transparency, and it's great for images with sharp edges like logos and icons. The GIF image format supports both animation and transparency, but has a limited color palette. GIF stands for Graphics Interchange Format. And finally, we have SVG, which stands for Scalable Vector Graphics. It's a vector image format. These images can be scaled as much as needed without losing quality. Great, now that you know about image formats, let's see some video and audio formats. MP3 is an audio format known for its efficient compression. It's a lossy format, so some audio data is lost during the compression to make these files smaller. MP4 is one of the most common video formats. It offers good compression and supports multiple audio and video codecs, subtitles, and metadata. MOV, the QuickTime multimedia file developed by Apple, is primarily associated with QuickTime Player. Other popular audio and video file types are WAV, a lossless audio format that keeps the original quality of the audio, and WebM, a high-quality open-source video format. If you ever need to customize the fonts of your web application, you will also work with font formats. These are the three most widely used ones. TTF, which stands for True Type Font, is a font format compatible with different operating systems. WOFF, WOFF, is a modern font format specifically designed for web development purposes. It stands for Web Open Font Format. These files are smaller because they have better compression. They can also store metadata, including licensing information. And WOFF2 is the successor of WOFF, with even more efficient compression and performance. You can also create archive files if you need to group multiple folders and files. The most widely used archive format is zip. Zip offers lossless compression, so no data is lost during the process. It's widely supported across operating systems and software applications. And finally, let's talk about documentation. In web applications, you will usually find a file called README that contains information about the application, how to use it, how to install it, its license, and how to contribute. They are usually written in a format called Markdown. With Markdown, you can create structured documents with headings, subheadings, links, images, lists, and more. Markdown files have a .md or .markdown extension. Here you can see the README file of FreeCodeCamp's GitHub repository. You can create this detailed structure and format using Markdown. You will definitely read and write many READMEs throughout your career. Learning about these common file types is essential for web development. From the core building blocks of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to image, video, and audio formats, every file type has an important role in creating interactive web applications. What are some of the common web browsers available today, and how do you install one? Web browsers are applications you use to visit pages on the internet. If you're going through the FreeCodeCamp curriculum, there is a very good chance you're using a web browser right now. As of 2024, the most popular browsers are Microsoft Edge, Firefox, Google Chrome, and Safari. There are quite a few other options, and market shares are always changing, but these four are the most common at this time. Your operating system most likely comes with a browser installed by default. For Windows, you'd have Microsoft Edge. For Mac, you'd have Safari. For Linux, you'll probably have Firefox. But what if you want to use a different browser? The good news is you already have a default browser, so you can navigate to the web page for the browser you want and download the appropriate installer for your operating system. When choosing a browser, consider factors like speed, security features, and compatibility with websites you frequently visit. Some browsers offer unique features. For example, Opera has a built-in VPN, while Brave focuses on privacy and ad blocking. Installation is usually straightforward. After downloading the installer, simply run it and follow the on-screen instructions. Most browsers will offer to import your bookmarks and settings from your current default browser, making the transition easier. Alternatively, you can install a browser through your operating system's package manager, such as brew, install, --cask, Google-Chrome on macOS with Homebrew, or yai-s, brave-bin on Arch Linux. The package manager and package names available to you will vary depending on your operating system. Remember, you're not limited to just one browser. Many people use different browsers for different purposes, perhaps one for work and another for personal browsing. Feel free to experiment with different browsers to find what works best for you. What is the difference between a web browser, a website, and a search engine? Web browsers are software applications that allow users to access and navigate the World Wide Web. They interpret and display web content, including text, images, videos, and interactive elements. Key features of web browsers include the address bar, where you enter URLs or search queries, and the rendering engine, which translates HTML, CSS, and JavaScript into visual web pages. Browsers also offer bookmarks to save and organize favorite websites, extensions to enhance functionality, and various privacy and security features, such as pop-up blockers and private browsing modes. Popular web browsers include Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, Microsoft Edge, Safari, and Opera. Websites, on the other hand, are collections of web pages and related content that are identified by a common domain name and published on at least one web server. They are the destinations that you visit using your web browser. Components of websites include the domain name, which is the unique address of the website, like freecodecamp.org, and web pages, which are the individual documents that make up a website. Websites also often include multimedia content, like images, videos, and audio files that enhance the user experience, as well as interactive elements such as forms and buttons that allow user interaction. Websites can be static, where the content rarely changes, or dynamic, where the content updates frequently or is personalized for users. Search engines are web-based tools designed to help users find information on the internet. They use complex algorithms to index and rank web pages based on relevance to user queries. Key aspects of search engines include web crawlers, also known as spiders or bots, which are programs that systematically browse the web to discover and index new content. The indexing process involves organizing and storing information about web pages in massive databases. Search engines also employ ranking algorithms, which are complex systems that determine the order of search results based on factors like relevance, authority, and user experience. Popular search engines include Google, Bing, Yahoo, and DuckDuckGo. The relationship between browsers, websites, and search engines is interconnected. Web browsers are the tools used to access both websites and search engines. Websites are the destinations that users visit through browsers or find via search engines. Search engines help users discover websites by providing organized access to the vast amount of information on the web. Understanding these distinctions and relationships is crucial for effective internet use and basic web literacy. how to use a search engine effectively to achieve optimal results. Searching for information on the internet can be a daunting task. There are so many websites out there with so much data that it may seem impossible to get the results you want. But thanks to things like Boolean search syntax, you can narrow down your search to exactly what you need. Boolean search syntax is a way to use special words to help you find exactly what you're looking for when searching online. Here is an example of a basic search query for free CodeCamp curriculum. When you search for this, the search engine will return results that match any of these keywords, typically sorted by relevance, how likely they are to match or be related to more of your query. But what if you only wanted results that match both keywords? Well, you might have heard that you can wrap a query in quotation marks, like so. However, this query specifically matches the phrase free CodeCamp curriculum. This means that the results you will see will be limited to sites that say free CodeCamp curriculum together, not sites that say free CodeCamp and curriculum. If you want to match sites that include both of these terms, but not necessarily next to each other as a phrase, you can prefix each term with a plus symbol. Alternatively, maybe you're interested in free CodeCamp's initiatives outside of the curriculum. In this case, you can prefix the term curriculum with a minus symbol. This will return results that mention free CodeCamp, but exclude results that also mention curriculum. Or maybe you have a specific site you want to search, like our news platform. You can use site followed by the URL of the site you want to search. This query returns all results from freecodecamp.org/news that contain the word curriculum. By combining these tools, you can come up with very specific queries to get the exact information you need. For example, this query would search for Python articles on our news site, excluding articles that might talk about our curriculum. Search operators may vary, so it is always important to check the documentation for your preferred search engine. But you should now be empowered to get the exact results you want from your web searches. Alternatively, maybe you're interested in free CodeCamp's initiatives outside of the curriculum. In this case, you can prefix the term curriculum with a minus symbol. This will return results that mention free CodeCamp, but exclude results that also mention curriculum. Or maybe you have the search engine will return results that match any of these keywords, typically sorted by relevance, how likely they are to match or be related to more of your query. But what if you only wanted results that match both keywords? Well, you might have heard that you can wrap a query in quotation marks, like so. However, this query specifically matches the phrase free CodeCamp curriculum. This means that the results you will see will be limited to sites that say free CodeCamp curriculum together, not sites that say free CodeCamp and curriculum. If you want to match sites that include both of these terms, but not necessarily next to each other as a phrase, you can prefix each term with a plus symbol. Alternatively, maybe you're interested in Free Code Camp's initiatives outside of the curriculum. In this case, you can prefix the term curriculum with a minus symbol. This will return results that mention Free Code Camp, but exclude results that also mention curriculum. Or maybe you have a specific site you want to search, like our news platform. You can use site followed by the URL of the site you want to search. This query returns all results from freecodecamp.org/news that contain the word curriculum. By combining these tools, you can come up with very specific queries to get the exact information you need. For example, this query would search for Python articles on our news site, excluding articles that might talk about our curriculum. Search operators may vary, so it is always important to check the documentation for your preferred search engine. But you should now be empowered to get the exact results you want from your web searches.